What's going on, guys? And welcome to episode 235 of Hashtag AskGSM here today for May 30th, 2018. I'm Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well. I do apologize for the episode going up a little later than usual. Usually I like to have it up around noon to 3 o'clock Eastern time on Wednesdays. But I did have to work today, and I usually would record on Tuesday nights if that's the case, if I'm not around on Wednesdays. But I was busy on Tuesday night as well. But better late than never. We are here on Hashtag. We rarely miss a week, and thus we have arrived for episode 235. And we are mere days from not only my 23rd birthday, which I'm kind of like looking forward to, but not really. But I'm really more so looking forward to Ring of Honor on Saturday. New York City, Hammerstein Ballroom, a Ring of Honor television taping. So if you're in the area, if you're already going to the show, let me know. Would love to cross paths with you at the Ring of Honor TV taping on Saturday at the Hammerstein Ballroom. But before we get started here, if you want to send in a question, be sure to tweet me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. Leave a comment on the post. I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, be sure to tweet me, or drop a comment rather, on this very video in the comment section down below, and I'll include it in next week's edition. Speaking of which, our first question does come from YouTube, as always. From Captain Sunshine, their question was, what if WWE had a segment each week apologizing for the last terrible segment they had? Like this week, Sami Zayn apologized for the Lashley Sisters segment. Next week is the B Team apologizing for the barbecue segment, essentially saying, listen, we know this time we probably should have went to that heavily advertised women's gauntlet match, but Michael Cole really wanted an excuse to laugh at Titus O'Neil again. That should become a weekly staple on Raw. And I will admit this, Raw kind of cut that bullshit out for a long time, that sports entertainment nonsense. But I feel like it's so either ironic or coincidental, whatever, that WWE scores this multi-million/billion-dollar deal with Fox and with NBCU for their Raw and SmackDown shows respectively. And as soon as that's secured, and they know where Raw and SmackDown is headed in 2019, it's like they don't give a shit anymore. And Raw wasn't like must-see before that anyway. But it's like now they just don't give a shit, and they'll just phone it in every single week. Starting with that Lashley Sister segment on last week's show. That was fucking terrible. I talked about it here on Hashtag on Wednesday of last week. That was atrocious. That was that last week, and this week it was the, as you mentioned, the B Team barbecue, which again, a massive waste of time. Like you said, they were heavily advertising that women's gauntlet match, which was good. It ended up being a decent match, but really, fucking Dana Brooke, who gives a shit? Mickie James was like the hometown hero. She got a great pop, was in there for like 2 minutes with Ruby Riott. They really rushed through the eliminations for like a seven woman gauntlet match. It blew by in maybe 20 minutes, if that. So it was very anticlimactic. It was a decent match, but not nearly as good as it could have been. So again, if they just cut that shit out altogether and really devoted more time to the women's match, I would have been happier. But yeah, that was pretty bad. But yeah, I agree. I think it should be a weekly thing, a weekly staple on Raw from here on out for WWE to apologize for their awful TV every single week, at least some atrocious segments. And, or, here's a better idea, don't book that shit in the first place. Don't book the bullshit to begin with. Elena the Y from YouTube, hey, so long story short, I've actually been stuck in a hospital for the past month and barely even know what's been happening in WWE, much less other promotions. So if you don't mind recapping, what are the storylines for Money in the Bank, and are any of them worthwhile? Well, first and foremost, hope you're doing well, hope you're doing okay. Obviously, you must not be if you've been in the hospital for a month. So hopefully you're doing okay. My best wishes to you or whoever you might be in the hospital with. But nonetheless, to answer your question, what's been going on recently in WWE? Well, I think you're in luck, Elena. I think you are missing the possible best time. I think now is the best possible time to be missing out on WWE TV. Because in 2018, it really peaked with WrestleMania. The road to WrestleMania I thought was good. Could have been better, but it was good for both Raw and SmackDown. With the main roster product, it's really been all downhill since WrestleMania. And they had a few, fine shows coming out of Mania, the Superstar Shakeup and the post-WrestleMania shows. Beyond that, though, Backlash was fucking putrid. It's one of the worst shows in a long-ass time. And the TVs have not been much better. SmackDown's been better since the Shakeup. But Raw has been in a pretty deplorable state recently. So the main storylines for Money in the Bank, obviously, Well, first of all, I would say skip out on watching Raw or SmackDown until the pay-per-view. Just watch the pay-per-view. Just watch the show. Or even wait until after the fact. See what I and a few other people think about it, and then determine for yourself whether it's worth watching or not. Like Backlash. I would never put that on anyone to watch that pay-per-view back if they didn't need to. Why the fuck would you want to? Because that show sucked. Other than Rollins and Miz in the opener. But so far, the main storylines for Money in the Bank, obviously, you have your two main ladder matches. The women's Money in the Bank ladder match, a men's Money in the Bank ladder match, which have been pretty well built. And they have a lot of great competitors in them, and the matches should be amazing. Beyond that, though, the card is solid. Ronda Rousey and Nia Jax really came out of nowhere. Essentially, Nia Jax, the Raw Women's Champion, was the one who challenged Ronda Rousey for her to be the first one to challenge for her Raw Women's title coming out of the Alexa Bliss feud. So that happened, and apparently Nia Jax is heel again for whatever reason. I thought that was stupid. We're getting the Bludgeon Brothers versus the Clubs, Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows at the pay-per-view for whatever the fuck reason, like who gives a shit. The match should be fine, but it's like this match really has no build whatsoever. We're getting a tag team battle royal on next week's Raw to determine the number one contenders to Woken, Matt Hardy, and Bray Wyatt. Again, who cares? They've really not been taking their tag team divisions, either on Raw or SmackDown, seriously for a while now. The main matches, again, the ladder matches should be great. AJ Nakamura should also be very good. If you missed Backlash, obviously their last man standing match ended in a draw, so they are having another match in Money in the Bank, which I know it's like, oh, growing tiresome by this point, but the match should be good. It's last man standing, so that should be interesting. Jinder Mahal versus Roman Reigns is a prime example of what I said earlier. Now is a good time to not be watching the product. Like, who cares? They're expecting Jinder to be such a good heel that he's going to get people to cheer Roman Reigns, which, in fact, it's going to either have the opposite effect or people won't react at all or just shit on the entire match in Chicago. I'll be there at the show, so I'll know firsthand how people are reacting to Roman and Jinder, and I can tell you just from firsthand experience, having not been there yet, but just as a prediction, this is not that bold of a prediction, but it's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be a pretty reaction to that match, and I don't expect it to be that good anyway. So I think that's most of the main storylines. We're getting Carmella and Asuka because Paige said Asuka gets a title shot, and that's really it. So we're getting that. Bobby Lashley and Sami Zayn, I would feel better off not describing that feud to you because I feel like you would be, you might lose a few IQ points in me talking about it with the fucking segments that I mentioned earlier. So the build has not been that good. It's been consistent, at least with the ladder matches. The overall card I'm looking forward to just because I'll be there, and Money in the Bank is usually a pretty good show, if not a great show. Hoping that trend does not stop with this year's installment. But given we have a Chicago crowd, given I'll be there, given we have two top awesome ladder matches on paper, I have hope it will be a good show, but I'm not holding my breath, given the current product from the company. So again, if you have not been watching Raw or SmackDown, Elena, don't bother going out of your way to watch them. Don't feel like you're missing out on anything. NXT's been great. The main roster, not so much. Brandon A. from YouTube, top 3 favorite matches of the week. Continuing along the trend from last week. So my top 3 favorite matches of the week. Easily number 1, without a doubt. And if your number 1 is anything else, I mean, then again, I don't really watch New Japan and all that other shit. I didn't watch fucking Dominion or Naruto, whatever the fuck their most recent show was. But I do watch NXT, the main roster shows, Raw and SmackDown, Ring of Honor, and Impact. From those shows, again, your number 1 has to be, from those shows, Alexander and Murphy. Cedric Alexander and Buddy Murphy from Tuesday night's 205 Live for the Cruiserweight Championship. Just an outstanding match. One of, if not the best Cruiserweight match I've ever seen on the main roster. Now, we had some pretty amazing ones in the CWC that were better than this. But from a build standpoint, a storytelling standpoint, a drama standpoint, in-ring action standpoint, crowd standpoint, this was a blow-away bout. This was really fucking good, especially by 205 Live standards. And the show has been picked up in quality quite a bit since right before WrestleMania. But this was just fantastic. So, really a standout showing from both guys. So, easily my number 1 is that match. Number 2, this might surprise some people, but New Day versus Miz, Sheamus, and Cesaro from SmackDown. I figured it would be an entertaining match, but not nearly as good as it ended up being. It It was a pretty solid first half, but once they kicked it up a notch in the second half, it turned into a hell of a match. And what I think made it better was the fact that the crowd was so hot for it. I think they were in either Cameron last night or Raleigh. They were in North Carolina, and people went fucking nuts for it. People went nuts for it. They were a really hot crowd on Tuesday, which was great to see. Love that match. And number 3 from Impact, Desmond Xavier and Petey Williams was a really, really fun X Division outing on Thursday night. Desmond Xavier's been kind of treading water for a while now. He won last year's Super X Cup in Impact. Petey Williams has been great to see back in Impact because he's still got it. He can still go, and he's had a lot of good matches in recent months. So I love that match. Check out that match from Impact from last Thursday. Cedric Alexander versus Buddy Murphy from last night's 205 Live. And New Day versus The Miz, Sheamus, and Cesaro from Tuesday's SmackDown. Brandon's second question. Top 3 favorite barbecue/cookout side dishes. Always love non-wrestling related questions like this one. Off the top of my head, easily mashed potatoes. If you have mashed potatoes as a side dish at a barbecue, I don't know why you wouldn't, but easily mashed potatoes. Tuna/potato salad. I am a salad guy. I don't love salad. I do like salad, but when it's tuna salad or macaroni salad or potato salad, I don't know. I really enjoy it for whatever reason. I'm a potato salad guy. We are far and few between, but we are out there. So, do like tuna/potato salad, the mashed potatoes, and also corn. I like corn. I didn't have the chance to have corn on Monday. I did have to work Monday night, which is why I missed Raw. Thank God, because the show was no good. But I was able to have a hamburger before I left, and the macaroni salad that we made too. Was not able to have the corn. Mac and cheese is a solid honorable mention for a pretty good side dish. I don't ever make them. I just contribute to eating them, which I feel like is just as effective and just as helpful. His next question, breakdown in percentages. How much blame goes to each entity for the crap WWE gives us? I can't do in percentages. This is impossible. I'll just tell you how much blame I feel like should go to these people. But here they are. Vince McMahon, the producers/bookers, writing and creative, the talent, and announcing. All right, so how much blame should go to each one? Vince McMahon should be like 100% because he gets the final say on literally anything. So he should get all the blame, if not 90% of it. So I'm not fucking doing the percentages shit because that just seems like completely pointless and a waste of my time. But I'll just tell you how much I feel like how much blame should go to each entity here. Vince McMahon, almost all of it. The bookers, not all of it, because I've heard, former creative writers say that they have great ideas, but they're not really allowed to make TV because of Vince. So I would say maybe 50, because I feel like someone had to have written it in the first place. So definitely at least 50% from them. Or no, wait, that's writing and creative. Producers and bookers, not really. I mean, maybe for some sloppy matches, I would give them maybe 30%. This is not going to add up to 100, by the way. So I like your percentages idea, but I'm not going to have it add up to 100. The talent, I agree with your next question. So your next question was like, same question for the WWE, for the good that WWE gives us. And you said, I don't believe it's the same question because, for example, I give the talent about 50 for the good and 10% for the bad. And I agree with that. The bad they should get very little shit for because they're just doing their jobs. And if it's a bad match, sometimes people just don't have chemistry, but that's on the producers and the bookers and the writing team. Why would you put those two people in the first place, in the ring against each other in the first place? So the talent for the bad don't get as much credit whatsoever blame, whatever. And announcing, maybe a little more than the talent, but it's still not their fault. People shit on Jonathan Coachman. I really don't mind Jonathan Coachman. I hated JBL. I thought fucking David Otunga was a waste of space. I don't know. I don't really mind Jonathan Coachman. He makes a lot of mistakes, but he's only been back for 4 months. I don't know. I don't think he's terrible. And that's really just the over-scripting of the WWE announcers for you. And then Corey Graves and even Michael Cole is not great most days, but, they try the best with what they're given, so it's kind of hard to blame them. For the second question, same question, but for the good. Vince, I would give not 100. I feel like you kind of have to, because he's booking the shit at the end of the day. If you're going to blame him for the bad, you got to blame him just as much for the good, because he's in control of everything we get on this show, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So if not 100%, like with the blame, maybe like 90. Because sometimes shit happens when it's not his doing, like a great match happening. That could be Vince. So I'll say 90, but I feel like it's more fair to say that he gets 100, a lot like with the Blame, because Vince gets the final say on anything, because he booked the match in the first place. The bookers and producers, for the good stuff, I would say more than they do the Blame, because they book the matches, they produce the matches. If it's a match we're talking about here, not a fucking promo, but I guess the same thing goes for a promo. So again, more than the Blame for sure. Writing and creative, about the same, about 50%, because they write the shit in the first place, but they can have a terrible feud, and then Bobby Lashley and Sami Zayn can go in there and have a great match in Money in the Bank. I doubt that's going to happen. But, they should get some credit. The talent, at least 60% for the good, because that's usually not a home run angle that they do nowadays. Usually it's just a home run match. It's like a great match that we get. That's really the highlight in the good that we get from WWE in these, this day and age. It's really not a great storyline or a great angle, because those are really far and few between, unfortunately, in 2018 with this company. But they really do hit it out of the park with their matches. And announcing, they get less credit than they... I give them credit, but I don't give them credit for the good. You know what I mean? Because they really do try, but I haven't heard like a great call of a moment in some time. Maybe when the Hardy Boys came back and Michael Cole said, "Things are about to be broken." That was cool. Beyond that, I don't know. They really do not wow me. Maybe aside from maybe Corey Graves. But like Michael Cole and Jonathan Coachman more so have their misfires than they ever do something going right. Than they do like their proudest moments. So I would give them more blame than I do praise, just because I feel like they have more bad than good moments on WWE TV. Jeremy B. from Facebook, can Bryan just beat Cass to end this feud, and they can send Cass's green ass back to developmental? Yeah, I wish they would, because Cass just is no good. I'm sorry, I know he tries, and he's been getting better in the microphone. In the ring, though, the guy's no special. He really isn't. I know he had that good showing in the 4-way a couple years ago, with Owens and Roman and Seth, when Owens first became Universal Champion, but that was it. The guy was in the fucking match for 15 minutes, and then a match with fucking Kevin Owens, Seth Rollins, and Roman Reigns. Was that really Big Cass's, doing? I thought he had a good showing, but if he can't get, at least a good match out of Daniel Bryan, or vice versa, at Backlash, then there's not much hope for the guy. I'm sorry, but there's not. He's just not that good. So hopefully the feud ends at Money in the Bank with Bryan winning decisively, and that's fucking it. But I feel like Cass is going to win. They'll keep the feud alive, and then blow it off at Extreme Rules in some sort of stupid stipulation match. Like a fucking shark cage match again for the millionth time. Would not be shocked. But yeah, the feud is doing nothing for me, and Big Cass just does nothing for me in general. That's why the Enzo tag team was so good. Because I thought they worked well with each other, and their matches were better because they both, hid their weaknesses. On the mic, Enzo was great. In the ring, he was shit. Big Cass isn't all that good in the ring either. But as a tag team, for whatever reason, they work because they had the crowd behind them. On their own, could not give a shit about either one of them. So I do hope the feud does end soon. And Cass gets either repackaged or sent... I don't even fucking want him... You said send them back to developmental? I don't even want Cass in NXT. I honestly don't. I really don't. The last thing I want is more Big Cass in NXT, let alone Jinder or any of the other fucking losers I have no desire to see on Raw or SmackDown. So, I don't know. I don't know what you do with the guy, because he so far has sunk more so than he has swam on SmackDown Live. His second question, if 205 Live isn't getting tag titles, do you think the Lucha House Party should be put in the tag team division on SmackDown, where they could wrestle the New Day, Sanity, The Bar, the Usos, and the Bludgeon Brothers? No. I would keep them right where they are. I think they're great in 205 Live. Just because they don't have tag titles doesn't mean they're not going to go anywhere. I feel like they have such better direction on 205 Live than they would on SmackDown. And I think SmackDown's tag team division has potential with all the tag teams you mentioned in addition to Gallows and Anderson. But they've done jack shit with their tag team division in recent months. The Bludgeon Brothers have been MIA on SmackDown since winning the belts at fucking WrestleMania almost 2 months ago. The Usos just recently reappeared. I know they were on SmackDown last week, but they just recently reappeared to face fucking, or they in the dance-off last night. That's the best thing you can have the Usos doing. The Bar and the New Day have had some great matches, but Sanity has just disappeared. Fucking had all those vignettes, never showed up. So why do you think that the Lucha House Party would be any different? I would keep them right where they are in 205 Live. I think they are a perfect fit for that show. Jeremy's third question, it was a picture of a tweet from his Twitter, at Jeremy8911, I believe his Twitter handle is, basically saying, have you seen these men, with a picture of Sanity. No, I have not. Again, same thing with Sanity. Where the fuck have they been? I mean, you literally just answered your own question from before. You say that they should be put in the SmackDown Tag Team division, but then Sanity, what you mentioned Sanity there, that they could have all these good matches with Sanity. Where the fuck has Sanity been? Who's Sanity? Where have they been? I think I saw them in the back of a fucking milk carton this morning when I was making myself breakfast. It's like these guys have been MIA since TakeOver. I know they were in an episode of NXT recently, but anyway, that was to write them off, to send them to SmackDown, and so far they haven't showed up. I mean, again, I agree with putting these people on programming as long as you have a plan for them. But why the fuck don't have you how could you not have a plan for a tag team that has momentum, that people are interested in seeing, and you have enough tag teams to warrant putting them on TV, if only against fucking local athletes, to help build momentum? I thought that was really dumb. So hopefully it's not too long before we see Sanity. I could see the Bludgeon Brothers knocking off Anderson and Gallows and Money in the Bank, and then Sanity showing up soon after. So hopefully that's what happens, because I think just having them sit on the sidelines is a total waste of their talent. At That What She Said, 86 from Twitter, do you think it would be a good idea if New Japan Pro Wrestling buys out TNA and makes it their American show, like the USPW, United States Pro Wrestling? I really don't see the worth in that at all. I think Impact has come a long way from where it was. It's never going to be a solid competitor to WWE, ever. Ever. It's a good alternative to WWE. No one will ever be on the level of WWE here in the States. And speaking of which, New Japan already has a pretty solid following here in the States. They did a few shows in Long Beach last year, all across California, last year, this year. So the Long Beach shows, I think, did really well between last summer and the ones they had back in March, I think, where they did Kenny Omega and Ibushi, the Golden Lovers versus the Young Bucks. I'm pretty sure those did really well. So I don't think they need a show. Like, it would be cool if they had a... Here's what I pitch. It would be cool if they aired, like, their weekly shows. Like, the reason I don't get it into New Japan, I know they have their shows, like, once a month or twice a month, whatever the fuck it is, but they don't have a place where you can watch, like, the weekly shows. I know they have, like, a show on Access. I don't get Access, and it's... I don't know how to watch it. That's why for so long I never watched Ring of Honor, because there was really nowhere for me to watch it. I don't have Sinclair Broadcasting. And then finally... I mean, they would upload the fucking shows to their website inconsistently, so that became a pain in the ass, which is why I stopped watching after I started watching it in the summer of 2014. But when they jumped to Fight TV a few years ago, it was the best thing to ever happen to Ring of Honor, because they air at the same time every single week. Now it's also uploaded to their Honor Club thing. With New Japan World, like, they have, like, their weekly shows uploaded somewhere. Like, I know people follow the storylines, but does that, like, where are these storylines being furthered, is what I'm saying. Like, I agree, I think having some sort of American show would solve that, but they really don't need to buy out TNA in order for that to happen. They have enough talent. They don't need fucking Austin Aries and Pentagon Jr. if he's even a full-time guy in Impact. I don't think he is. I know he's their champion right now, but I don't think he's an Impact guy. I really don't see the worth in that at all. I do think they should have a bigger presence here in the States, and they do. I mean, they, again, like I said, they do really well with all their touring. They do in California. But they don't have a show. I mean, again, I guess they do in Japan, but here, someone's got to enlighten me here. I know people have, like, oh, you gotta watch fucking New Japan. It's like, but how? How do I watch New Japan on a weekly basis? I mean, I understand buying, like, Wrestle Kingdom through New Japan World. Do they have a weekly show through New Japan World? Yes or no? Someone has to tell me that, please. If so, maybe I'll check it out. Otherwise, I really have no desire to go out of my way to try to find an episode of a show from like 3 weeks ago featuring old content. I really don't care about that. So, anyway, to go back to your question, with TNA, it's really not necessary. Impact, I'm shocked it has survived this long. I'll give them credit for that. But the product is so much better than what it once was. They don't need to be bought out right now. They really would serve no purpose. New Japan can have a bigger presence here in the States without buying out Impact and taking all their talent. I think that talent comes from Lucha. They come from Ring of Honor. They don't really need the New Japan talent. So I'm going to say no to that one. At HB Kevin 91581 from Twitter. I like this question a lot. Would you say that Rogue One and Solo are NXT TakeOver to The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi's main roster pay-per-view. I love questions like this that combine two things that I love. First of all, I just want to tell you I love your question, like I said before. But I gotta disagree with you. I gotta disagree. Because you're implying that Rogue One and Solo were better than The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. I don't know where I would rank these 4 movies. Solo, for me, I won't spoil anything, but if you don't want to hear anything about the movie, I would suggest skipping ahead by a minute or two. I like Solo. I thought it was a good movie. Easily my least favorite Star Wars movie since they rebooted the franchise a few years ago. Easily my least favorite of those 4. I feel like with the Star Wars movies, they're either hit or miss. And still to this day, The Last Jedi came out a couple months ago. People are still saying it was a masterpiece. I've seen other people say it was complete shit. It ruined Star Wars for them. It's like, what the fuck? People either love it or they hate it. I've never seen anyone say it's like in the middle. It's either the greatest movie in the Star Wars franchise or the worst. I loved it. I fall in the camp that really liked that movie. The Force Awakens I thought was really good too. I thought The Last Jedi was a better movie overall, even though there were a lot of things I didn't like about it. Rogue One I thought was great. Solo I didn't really think was great. Honestly, I was bored. I fell asleep almost halfway through. Almost fell asleep. I was exhausted. It's like, oh, you should have gotten more sleep the night before. It's like, I don't fucking know. Like, I went to go see Avengers at midnight. The movie did not end until like 3 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday night, and my eyes were wide open the entire time. So why on a 5 o'clock on a Sunday am I struggling to stay awake during a movie, which never happens? But that was the case on Sunday when I saw Solo. I thought it was a good movie. I thought it met my expectations in being decent, but it was by no means great. So I can't call Solo the takeover to like The Force Awakens, Last Jedi main roster pay-per-views. Because the main roster pay-per-views aren't always great. They're very hit or miss, a lot like WWE. The entire Star Wars franchise is very hit or miss. Even the secondary movies. Rogue One I thought was great. Solo, not so great. Force Awakens I thought was good. Last Jedi I thought was great. But that's purely my opinion. It's so subjective. And I feel like WWE is so subjective. The main roster is so subjective. They can have a great pay-per-view 1 week or 1 month, and then have a shitty-ass pay-per-view the next. That being said, I would say the real NXT, which I talked about on a podcast on Wrestle Rant Radio a few weeks ago with Jamie Lee Mack, follow him, he's the man, is that NXT is Marvel. Marvel consistently delivers, and Marvel has more movies out a year than Star Wars. So it's kind of reversed in that effect. Star Wars has fewer movies, but they're not as good. And I'm not saying if they had more movies it would be better. I think it'd be far worse. But what I'm saying is that even though Marvel has more movies, like one every few months, like way more than they probably should, they've all been great. The last like 5 or 6 Marvel movies have been outstanding. I have never seen a bad Marvel movie. Since, in the MCU I'm talking about here. Since the start of the MCU 10 years ago, I have yet to see a bad Marvel movie. Some are, average, like the Hulk and, Thor. I thought Thor, I don't know, kind of bored me. It wasn't bad. I thought it was okay. But all the other ones are either good, great, or amazing, like Infinity War. I think NXT is the real Marvel here. I think Marvel is the real NXT because they consistently deliver. You can rank them whichever way you want, but there's so many choices to choose from because they're all great. Either good, great, or amazing, or average, but that's rare. Like some of the takeovers. WWE, like Star Wars, their shows are very hit or miss and very subjective. Sometimes they have a great show people hate, and sometimes they have a show that's shit that people love. So it's very, very decisive. But I would definitely say that Marvel's NXT, and that Star Wars is the WWE main roster product. At Reborn Again from Twitter, John here on YouTube. Be sure to check out his show, Real Honestly with John Ritland. He's got a great show going, great channel with the Durbinator and the gang. His first question was, what 5 current men and 5 current women would you start a wrestling company with? I think this is a great question that it needs a lot more analysis than what I'm about to give it. I really just went with the first 5 people, for both men and women, that came to mind. I just didn't have the time to really think about it. I really just kind of went with these men and women just because I think they would be the best fit for a wrestling company if I was about to start one. And I can give you like, oh, this is why, and here's why, and blah, blah, blah. I'm about to, but not as in-depth as I probably should, because this is a loaded question. But for me, if I was about to start a wrestling company, for the men, I would choose Seth Rollins, because he's still on the younger side. The guy fucking delivers in any role he's in. He is the man. AJ Styles, I know he's 40, but the guy is still one of the best in the world right now. How can you start a company without taking out AJ, without investing in AJ Styles? So AJ Styles, Seth Rollins, Kenny Omega might surprise some people, but again, he is another one that's one of the best in the world right now, and I think would thrive wherever he is, whether it be New Japan, WWE. Got to pick up Kenny Omega. The next two are kind of wild cards, but Braun Strowman, you need an organic star. Braun Strowman is fucking over. Again, he can get over as a heel, babyface, whatever. I'm going to pick up Braun Strowman because I think he has a lot of upside. And finally, Aleister Black. I was trying to think of other people outside of WWE. I didn't want to pick solely WWE people, which is why I picked Omega. That wasn't the only reason, obviously, as I mentioned. But like Ring of Honor, like Cody maybe, but I don't think he would be one guy that I would pick like out of my top 5. Definitely top 10. I don't know about top 5. Cody would be up there. Jay Lethal would be up there. Adam Cole maybe Ricochet, but I thought Aleister Black, just complete package. The guy's a fucking star. So for the men, Rollins, Styles, Omega, Black, Strowman. For the women, got to pick up Ronda Rousey because she has the name value. She has potential. She's shown potential so far in the ring. She can be really, really good in the wrestling business. So easily Ronda Rousey. You'd be an idiot not to pick up Ronda Rousey. Charlotte, for obvious reasons. She's a star. Sasha Banks is beloved and is a great heel too, so Sasha Banks. Asuka, star. And finally, I couldn't really think of anyone else, again, outside of WWE. I honestly couldn't. So like I'm trying to... I know there's a lot of great women wrestlers out there, but none that I would like build a promotion around. Maybe Toni Storm because she's young and she's also really, really, really fucking good. Or Kairi Sane, but I feel like Asuka already kind of fits that mold. Not like, oh, we only need one Asian, but like, I don't know. I feel like they're kind of the same competitor. So that's why I only went with Asuka and not Kairi Sane. But Becky Lynch, I think she's a great underdog. People can get behind her. It's either her or Bayley. Bayley, I feel, is more damaged. So I would definitely go with Becky Lynch over Bayley if I was starting a wrestling company. John's second question here. Do you think WWE is basically doing what WCW did back in the 90s by signing up so many talents just so other companies can't have them? Or am I just being cynical? I think you make a great point there. I mean, you're not the only one to have thought that, and you're not wrong either. Because that's been the case for years now. They will sign people just for the fucking sake of signing people, just because they have buzz elsewhere, and they don't want whatever company they're to be, whatever they're a part of, to hurt their product. Every company I have ever seen get some sort of buzz, WWE has taken that talent. Look no further than the What Culture promotion, which fucking buzzed out. That faded out real quick. Real quick. I think they're still running shows. I don't know. I honestly don't really care. But they had a lot of stars they built around, but WWE signed a lot of them in that UK tournament. And the promotion has not been the same. I mean, they also lost some other main guys like Adam Blampaye and all the fucking, the woman harasser, whatever, that guy. But, beyond that, I think the core talent they had to work with all went to WWE. They had that World of Sport show a few years ago that was about to start, never did, because WWE signed a lot of their people. That's why they brought back Jim Ross, because he was about to work on that project. That's what they do. They just sign people away just to make sure they're not a competitor to another company. Now, sometimes they will use the talent correctly. I'm not saying they're going to bomb them every single time, but you're absolutely right. They're signing people for the sake of signing people. Like, I think Keith Lee is a good example of someone I think could make headlines elsewhere, and they didn't really want him to. They didn't want him to be a valuable asset to Impact or Ring of Honor or New Japan, whatever. But at the same time, I think he's a guy that belongs in WWE. I think he's a guy that can get over very easily in WWE. I know people say that about like Donovan Dijak. Donovan Dijak was not going to move the needle in Ring of Honor. The guy is good. I'm glad he went to WWE. I think he's a good fit for WWE. They're still working on some sort of character for him. Otherwise, he would have shown up by now. It's fucking NXT. They give Kona Reeves a chance, but not Donovan Dijak. I think he'll get his chance soon enough. But what was I saying? But no, you're not being cynical. You are absolutely being realistic, where they don't sign everyone away, and they do have some plans for certain people, but there are like a lot of people where they just sign them away just to get them away from other promotions. Like when Del Rio was super hot in the Indies and in Lucha, they brought him back. I know they needed a new Latino star in their mind, but it's like, fucking, you don't need Del Rio. And then he faded out, and then he left. And then he hasn't been the same since, and he has not had that same worth that he did a few years ago. Bobby Lashley, same exact thing. The guy was an Impact player, no pun intended, in Impact, And they just signed him away just because, they found out that he had a lot of buzz around him, so they brought him back. Not to say that he didn't deserve to come back. I think Bobby can be a great asset to WWE if utilized properly. But so far, they've done fucking nothing with him. They didn't bring him in for a Sami Zayn segment, did they? No, I think more so it was because he was making waves in Impact, and they would rather hurt Impact than benefit their own roster. And hopefully, at some point, they will utilize him properly. But he's a prime example of a guy where I don't think they had many plans for him coming in, despite the hopes of him facing Brock Lesnar. At this point, that's out the fucking window. After that Lashley sister segment, that shit is so far removed from being a possibility, it's ridiculous. So again, you are not being cynical. Maybe not in every case when it comes to they signed away Ricochet to get him away from New Japan. No, Ricochet was always WWE bound. Dating back to 2015. That's been in the works for a long ass time now. That being said, there are a lot of people they do sign just for the sake of signing them, just so other companies can't use them. You are absolutely right in that respect. If SmackDown does go to 3 hours, also from John, by the way, if SmackDown does go to 3 hours next year, what are the chances they either move 205 Live to show it right after NXT, or could they scrap the 205 Live brand altogether? I don't think they'll scrap it, otherwise they would have done so already. I mean, I'm not saying they won't, or they couldn't, because they absolutely can if they wanted to. But they've invested so much in that division. This company does not admit failure easily. They really don't. They drag shit out for years on end just to we're not a failure, even though it clearly is. And the brand's getting better anyway, so I really do not see why they would scrap it. I could see them moving the show. I do not want First of all, I don't want a 3-hour SmackDown to begin with. But I don't see a 3-hour SmackDown being followed up by another hour of 205 Live. Just wouldn't work. That'd be just stupid. But I could see them taping 205 Live the same way they do Main Event and then airing it on the network. Main Event doesn't air on the network. It airs on Hulu. That's a whole fucking other issue. But I could see them doing that with 205 Live because they're not on Raw anyway. The whole issue before was that, you can't tape it from Full Sail because they're on Raw every week and it wouldn't make sense and there's going to be so much disconnect. It's they're never on Raw anyway. They're never on the pay-per-views anyway, except for WrestleMania. So why the fuck not? I honestly would just move it to Full Sail and just tape it there at this point. I think the audience got into the matches last night, specifically the main event, which was great. 90% of the audiences, though, sit on their hands. And it's sad to see because the show has come a long way. So I would move it to Full Sail. It really doesn't matter if it's being taped after SmackDown because they're never on Raw anyway. So who gives a shit? It's like NXT. It's not like NXT's ever interacting with the main roster. So the fact that it's taped a month in advance before the takeover doesn't even matter. It really doesn't. So yeah, I would move the Cruiserweights to Full Sail and just air it after NXT, the same way they did with the Cruiserweight Classic, where they taped at a Full Sail, a month's worth of content, and they aired it on the network over the course of a few weeks. And it was perfect. Wednesday was the night for pro wrestling between NXT, the Cruiserweight Classic, and Lucha Underground. I would love for that to be the case once again, starting in 2019. But again, that's so far down the line, it's not even really worth thinking about right now. But it is a good question, though. Final two questions. First one comes from @Scarlet1 from Twitter. Pretty broad, but favorite and least favorite moments of 2018 so far. Good question. I mean, it's hard to say with wrestling. NXT is easily my favorite thing in all of wrestling so far. Between being a TakeOver back in January, the TakeOver Philadelphia show, watching New Orleans. I wasn't there, unfortunately, but that show was outstanding. The best TakeOver the best TakeOver they've ever done. And the Chicago one should also be great, and I'll be at that one in a few weeks too. NXT has been my favorite part of pro wrestling in 2018. Far, just so far up there, it's not even close. Just bar none, hands down. NXT, best thing about 2018, in my opinion, for WWE. The main roster's been all right. Again, I thought the road to WrestleMania was decent. I still enjoyed the brand split. The product recently has not been hot, but I don't know. Favorite moments, it has not been my favorite year in wrestling. I will say that much, at least for WWE. Definitely for NXT, not for WWE. Outside of WWE, Wrestle Kingdom I thought was great. Jericho and Omega kicked off the year on a super high note with their amazing match back on January 4th, as well as Okada versus Naito. That was a great match too. Impact's been a lot better. Ring of Honor has been pretty good. Cody and Kenny Omega at Supercard of Honor was very good. What else is there? Lucha's coming back soon. So it's been a good year for wrestling. Not great, in my opinion. It's not been my favorite year. I still say 2016 or 2015. It's hard to say. Might be my favorite years in wrestling. Probably 2015. just because 2016, the second end of it, was kind of shit when it came to Raw. SmackDown was lit, though. I don't know. It's hard to say. I still say 2015 might be my favorite year in wrestling. 2018 really doesn't give it a run for its money yet. I mean, in my time as a fan, that might sound like shit on people. Like, why the fuck is 2015 your favorite year? I don't know. I just have a lot of fond memories of 2015 in WWE as well as NXT. A lot of NXT memories do. And 2018's been great for NXT too, but the main roster, not so much. And I watched more WWE than anything, so that's why I really can't speak for any other promotions. So I can't really answer your question because not a lot comes to mind. That's all. I don't know. I thought WrestleMania was all right. I thought, a lot of the pay-per-views so far have been all right. The Rumble was amazing. I thought the year so far has peaked with the Rumble. And, Rollins has been on fire. AJ's been great. Strowman's been on fire. Seeing Lashley come back was cool. They ruined him, but whatever. It's had its moments, but it's been a decent year so far. Not a shit year, not an amazing year, but a decent year so far in my opinion. Final question comes from @RJ_Marceau from the Twitter machine. Are you surprised that Ruby Riott is not included in the women's Money in the Bank ladder match over Lana? She had a decent showing in the gauntlet match and had some decent/good matches since being called up. Thoughts on her main roster run so far? Ruby Riott has been a real revelation since being called up, I'll tell you that much. I liked her in NXT, especially after she grew out the hair. For whatever reason, I thought she really shined when she, I don't know if it was an appearance thing, but she wasn't really doing much before she grew out her hair. She was just kind of there on the show. I thought she was good, but she was by far from being my favorite. But then she came up to the main roster. I thought they miscast her as a heel, because I think she really does better as a babyface. And her SmackDown run was all right. I thought she had a great match with Charlotte at Fastlane. The Riott Squad, the idea of the Riott Squad does nothing for me. I think Liv Morgan sucks. And I like Sarah Logan, but she's super bland. The whole fucking, I'm a country gimmick. That fucking stupid as hell. But Ruby Riott's great, though. And she's been killing it on Raw since coming to Raw. Her promos have been great. Again, I think she's a better babyface. She's a lot like Seth Rollins, where I feel like she's a natural babyface. But she does really, really well in the heel role. And her matches have been great. Like you said, I thought the Bayley match was decent. The Sasha Banks match she had a while ago was awesome. It was really good. She had a great showing in that three-way with Banks and Ember Moon not too long ago. She had a great match, or a great showing in the Gauntlet on Monday. I thought she was the star of that match. So again, I think Ruby Riott has been really exceeding expectations. She has had a better main roster run than she ever did in NXT. And that's not a knock on her NXT stuff, but she just wasn't the star down there that she is on the main roster. She's given more room to breathe on Raw and on SmackDown, specifically Raw. So I'm a big Ruby Riott fan, not so much of the Riott Squad, but I think Ruby Riott has a lot of potential. She has a great look, very good talker. She makes the most of whatever she's given on the mic with her material. And in the ring, she's also second to none. So I'm a big Ruby Riott fan. I think she can go places on the main roster as long as they stay the course with her. And that's all I got to say for episode 235 here today for May 30th, 2018. Thank you guys for checking out the show as always. If you want to send in a question to next week's edition, be sure to tweet me on the Twitter machine @WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on the Book of Faces at facebook.com/Graham.gsm.Matthews. Leave a comment on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, be sure to drop your comment and question on this very video in the comment section down below, and I'll include it in next week's edition. So, with all that being said, guys, we will be back next Wednesday. I think I'll be working Tuesday night, maybe Wednesday morning. Oof, that might be rough. It might be one of those instances again next week where I have to record on Wednesday night again. So it might be going up a little later, like the same time it is today. So just heads up with that. And also, if I don't and I record it on Tuesday, like when I get home, I might not watch SmackDown in time. I just might record the show. We'll see. But if that's the case, you can, also send in your questions beforehand by up until after SmackDown, because at that point I might record just to get it over with, so I don't have to worry about it on Wednesday. So we'll see. I'll tweet about it. Stay tuned to the social medias in the days ahead. But anyway, guys, have a great weekend. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.